There are truths so ancient, so buried beneath centuries of silence, that most people will live their entire lives without ever coming face to face with them. Truths that were hidden not by accident, but by design. Because some revelations are simply too powerful, too dangerous, too sacred for the world to handle all at once. And what I am about to share with you is one of them. This is about you, about the part of you that has never quite fit, the part that has felt things too deeply, desired things too strangely, and experienced intimacy in ways you never had the words to explain. If you have ever looked at your own inner world and wondered why your desires feel different, why your sexuality seems to carry a weight that goes far beyond the physical, why some encounters left you feeling like you had just touched something cosmic while others left you feeling completely hollow, then what I'm about to tell you is going to change everything you thought you knew about yourself. Because the truth is, you are not broken. You are not confused. You are not too much. You are chosen. And the chosen ones have always experienced sexuality differently. Not because something went wrong in them, but because something went profoundly right. Because the soul that carries a higher calling cannot settle for shallow waters. It was built for the deep, and in the deep, the rules are completely different. Think about the moments you have never spoken aloud. The nights when desire moved through you like electricity through a wire, raw and overwhelming and impossible to name. The encounters that felt less like human connection and more like two universes colliding. The moments when your body simply refused. When everything inside you locked shut like a sacred gate, even when your mind was screaming yes. The way you have always been drawn, almost magnetically, to people who are broken. People who carry pain like a second skin. People who seem to call out for something only you could offer. These are not random experiences. These are not coincidences. These are not flaws in your design. They are patterns, sacred, ancient, unmistakable patterns that mark the ones who were never meant to live ordinary lives. And today, for the very first time, we are going to speak openly about all of them. I'm going to reveal the 5 most hidden, most misunderstood, and most extraordinary sexual habits of the chosen ones. 5 patterns that most people either deny, suppress, or carry in silence because the world never gave them the language to understand what was actually happening to them. 5 revelations that, as you hear them, will make something shift inside you. Because you will recognize yourself, you will feel seen in a way you rarely have. And you will finally understand that what you thought was your greatest confusion was actually your most sacred initiation. But before we go there, I need you to do something. If what I am saying is already resonating with you, if something in your chest is leaning in, if a part of you is whispering that this was meant for you, then hit that subscribe button right now. Because this is not the kind of content that ends here. What we are building together goes deeper with every video, further into the mysteries that most people will never dare to face. Subscribe now so you never miss what comes next. And one more thing, in the comments below, write the number 99. Spiritually, 99 represents the completion of a cycle, the end of the old and the beginning of something entirely new. By writing it, you are making a declaration. You are saying that you are done carrying this in silence, that you are ready to step into the full truth of who you are. Now take a breath, settle in, because what comes next is not theory. It is not spiritual entertainment, it is lived truth. The kind that reaches through the screen and speaks directly to the part of you that has always known it was different. The chosen ones have always carried this fire, and today we finally give it a name. Let us begin. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night with your heart pounding, your skin electric, your entire body trembling with an energy you could not explain? The room was silent. There was no one there. No voice, no movement, no visible presence of any kind. And yet something had just happened. Something undeniable. Something that left you more shaken, more stirred, more deeply affected than most experiences you have had with another living, breathing human being. If this has ever happened to you, I need you to hear this clearly. You are not imagining things. You are not losing your mind. You are not the victim of some strange psychological glitch. What you experienced is real, and it is one of the most ancient, most forbidden, and most carefully hidden realities of what it means to carry the mark of a chosen one. Here is something that the world was never taught to talk about. For many people who carry a higher spiritual calling, intimacy does not always involve another human body. It does not always happen in the physical dimension at all. Instead, it emerges as something else entirely, an unseen force, a presence without flesh, an encounter with beings that do not exist in matter, but in frequency, in vibration, in the invisible architecture of the universe itself. These are not figures from mythology or folklore. They are real experiences, documented across centuries, across cultures, across every corner of the human story. Ancient shamans spoke of them. Mystic priestesses knew them. Monks who had renounced all earthly desire still reported feeling them. Beings that arrive not through a door, but through the very fabric of your energy field. They come in different forms and with different intentions. Some feel like warmth, like being wrapped in something that has no temperature, but feels like home. Like a presence that presses gently against your chest and reminds your soul of something it forgot at the moment it was born into this body. Others come like a storm, a rush of fire through the veins, an intensity so overwhelming that your body arches and your breath disappears, and for just a moment, you are not sure where you end and the universe begins. And then there are those who arrive in the quiet hours before dawn, when your defenses are low and your soul is most open, slipping in like smoke through a cracked window, leaving behind a heaviness you cannot shake and an ache you cannot name. This is the reality that no one prepared you for. Because when you are a chosen one, your energy does not simply exist quietly within you. It radiates. It pulses outward like a signal, like a beacon in the dark, and the invisible world receives it. Your light calls, and the unseen answers. But here is where it becomes complicated. Here is where the beauty and the danger live side by side. Because not everything that answers your call comes with pure intentions. Not every presence that finds you in the night is there to elevate you. Some arrive to awaken you, to heal forgotten chambers of your soul, to ignite gifts that were lying dormant within you. These encounters leave you filled. They leave you clearer, stronger, more alive. You wake from them feeling as though something sacred has been restored inside you, as though a piece of yourself that you did not even know was missing has finally come home. But others come for different reasons entirely. They come to feed, they come to drain, they arrive cloaked in what feels like ecstasy and leave behind something that takes days, sometimes weeks, to recover from. You wake feeling hollow in a way that is hard to describe to anyone who has not felt it. A kind of emptiness that is not just physical, but spiritual, as though something essential was quietly taken from you while you were too open, too vulnerable, too unaware to protect yourself. This is the danger that history whispered about, but never shouted loud enough for the modern world to hear. The ancient ones knew it. The shamans built entire practices around it. The priestesses of the old temples devoted years to learning how to navigate exactly this. Because sexual energy, the life force that moves through the body in moments of desire and intimacy, is not just personal. It is cosmic. It is the same force that sustains creation itself. And when it activates fully within a chosen one, it does not stay contained within the walls of one human body. It expands. It reaches. It opens doors. And doors, by their very nature, can let things in from both directions. Every energetic union leaves a trace. This is not poetry. This is spiritual mechanics. When two energies merge, whether in the physical or in the invisible, they do not simply separate cleanly afterward. They leave threads, cords, invisible filaments woven between one essence and another. And unless you learn how to consciously cleanse your energy field, how to release what was never yours to carry, how to seal yourself after opening, you can walk through your days tangled in connections you never agreed to, carrying the emotional residue of beings you never even saw, feeling desires that do not originate within you, experiencing moods, compulsions, and longings that seem to come from somewhere outside yourself because, in some very real sense, they do. This is why discernment is not optional for the chosen one. It is survival. And yet, even knowing the risk, These encounters are not something to be feared and avoided entirely, because here is the truth that balances the warning. These experiences do not happen to you randomly. They do not arrive from nowhere. They are, in their deepest nature, mirrors, reflections of what is happening within your own soul at any given moment. The invisible presences that find you are drawn by the frequency you are broadcasting, and that frequency is shaped by your wounds, your longings, your unacknowledged needs, your unexpressed power. When you are vibrating from a place of wholeness, of awareness, of genuine inner alignment, what you attract from the unseen carries that same quality: light meeting light, power recognizing power, healing arriving in forms too beautiful for ordinary language. But when you are vibrating from a place of loneliness, of suppressed pain, of a desperate hunger for connection that you have not yet found in the human world, what answers that call can be something very different. Pain meeting pain, hunger calling to what feeds on hunger. And the encounter that follows, no matter how intense it feels in the moment, will leave you diminished rather than expanded. This is why the ancient ones insisted that the path of the chosen one begins not with opening, but with purification, not with seeking these experiences, but with becoming the kind of vessel that naturally calls forth only what belongs in the light. So if you have felt this, if you have lain awake in the dark and known with absolute certainty that something unseen was present with you, something that reached through the veil and touched you in ways no human hand ever has, then do not dismiss it. Do not bury it in embarrassment. Do not let anyone talk you out of what you experienced. But also, do not surrender to it blindly. Learn to ask. Learn to discern. Learn to hold your energy with the kind of intentional awareness that makes you a master of your own field, rather than a door left carelessly open to whatever passes by. Because you are not just a human being having strange experiences. You are a portal, a living intersection between the seen and the unseen. And a portal, by definition, requires a gatekeeper. That gatekeeper is your awareness, your willingness to develop the spiritual intelligence to know what you are opening to and why. The encounters with the invisible are real. They are part of your path. They are part of what makes your journey as a chosen one unlike anything the ordinary world can map or measure. But they are not meant to consume you. They are meant to initiate you, to show you the depth of what you are made of, to reveal that your sensitivity is not a liability, but a superpower, one that, when properly understood and properly protected, becomes one of the most extraordinary gifts a soul can carry in this lifetime. So the next time you wake in the dark and feel that presence, do not panic. Do not flee. Breathe. Center yourself. Ask inwardly whether what has arrived comes in the frequency of light or in the frequency of hunger, and trust the answer your body gives you before your mind has time to argue, because your body, chosen one, has always known the difference. You were simply never taught to listen to it. And now that you understand what happens when the invisible world reaches for you, it is time to explore the other side of the same mystery. Because while some chosen ones are drawn into these powerful, overwhelming encounters, others experience something that seems like the complete opposite. A silence so total, so absolute, so unexplainable, that even when the body burns with desire, something deeper simply will not allow it to move. That silence has a name, and it is our next revelation. Picture this moment. You are standing in front of someone you genuinely want. The chemistry between you is not imagined. It is real. It is palpable. It is the kind of energy that fills a room and makes the air feel heavier than it was a moment ago. Every logical part of your brain is saying yes. Every nerve ending in your body is leaning forward. And then, without warning, without reason, without any explanation that your conscious mind can produce, everything stops. Not slows down, not hesitates. Stops. Like a gate swinging shut from the inside. Like a lock clicking into place that no key you possess can open. And you are left standing there, confused and quietly ashamed, wondering what is wrong with you. If you have lived this moment, if you have felt that inexplicable freeze at the very threshold of intimacy, then I want you to understand something that may be the most liberating truth you have ever heard about yourself. Nothing is wrong with you. Not a single thing. What you experienced in that moment was not dysfunction. It was not fear wearing a sophisticated mask. It was not some unresolved psychological wound expressing itself at the worst possible time. What you felt was your soul speaking in the only language powerful enough to override every other signal in your body. It was protection. And here is what makes this so difficult for the chosen one to accept. The world has no category for this experience. Modern psychology will hand you a diagnosis. Religion will offer you a moral framework. Your friends will tell you that you just need to relax, to let go, to stop overthinking. But none of these explanations touch what is actually happening. Because what is happening exists at a level that psychology cannot fully measure, that religion cannot fully contain, and that well-meaning friends cannot begin to comprehend. It happens at the level of the soul. And the soul, when it comes to the chosen ones, operates by a completely different set of rules than the ones the world taught you. Here is the truth that most people will never understand. For a chosen one, intimacy is never merely physical. It is never just two bodies finding temporary relief in each other. Every act of genuine union carries with it an invisible exchange that goes far deeper than skin. It is a merging of energies, a blending of essences, a transfer of codes that imprint themselves onto your spiritual DNA in ways that can take years, sometimes lifetimes, to unravel. The ordinary person moves through these exchanges largely unaware of what is being given and received beneath the surface. But you, chosen one, cannot afford that kind of unawareness. Your system is too sensitive. Your energy is too rare. Your purpose is too specific to be scattered carelessly in connections that were never meant for you. And your soul knows this, even when your mind does not, even when your heart protests, even when your body aches with wanting. Your soul holds the blueprint of your destiny, and it guards that blueprint with a ferocity that can feel from the inside, like cruelty, like being locked out of your own life, like watching other people move freely through experiences that seem permanently out of reach for you. This is why the seasons of abstinence the chosen ones experience are so uniquely painful, not because of the physical absence of intimacy, though that loneliness is real and should never be minimized, but because of the silence that surrounds it, the inability to explain it to anyone without sounding damaged or broken or spiritually arrogant. Because how do you tell someone that your soul simply will not allow you to be with them? How do you explain a refusal that has no words? Only a sensation, a knowing, a door that will not open no matter how hard you push. Society has given this experience many cruel names. Frigidity, emotional unavailability, fear of commitment, avoidant attachment. And while some of these labels may sometimes apply to some people, they do not apply here. Because what the chosen one experiences in these moments of sacred refusal is not avoidance. It is discernment operating at the deepest possible level. It is the body acting as the instrument of the soul, enforcing a boundary that the conscious mind did not set and cannot remove. Because for a chosen one, every intimate connection is a contract. An invisible one, yes, but no less binding for being invisible. When two souls merge in genuine intimacy, they do not simply touch and separate without consequence. They sign something together. They agree to an exchange of energy, of influence, of spiritual imprint that persists long after the physical encounter has ended. You have likely felt this. The way certain people stay with you long after they have left. The way a connection from years ago can still echo in your body, still color the way you see love, still shape the way you reach for or pull back from intimacy today. That is the contract still running. That is the imprint still active within your system. And your soul, in its infinite wisdom, will refuse to sign certain contracts, not because the person is bad, not because the connection is without genuine feeling, but because the union would cost you something you cannot afford to lose at this particular moment in your journey. Perhaps it would scatter an energy that is being gathered for a specific purpose. Perhaps it would pull you into a frequency that would delay a destiny that is already in motion. Perhaps it would entangle your essence with someone whose path runs in a direction that would gradually, invisibly, pull you away from your own. Your soul sees all of this, and it says no. even when everything else in you says yes. The seasons of abstinence that follow this kind of sacred refusal can last for months, sometimes for years. And during those seasons, the doubt that creeps in can be almost unbearable. You begin to wonder if you are simply incapable of real intimacy, if there is some fundamental flaw in the way you were built for love. You watch people around you move easily through relationships, forming connections with what seems like effortless naturalness. And you feel the gap between their experience and yours like a wound that never quite closes. You begin to believe the voice that whispers you will always be alone, that something essential in you is permanently broken, that you were somehow built for a kind of love that does not actually exist in this world. But here is what that voice never tells you. Here is what the silence never reveals on its own, without someone willing to speak it plainly. Those seasons of stillness are not empty. They only appear empty from the outside, from the inside of your soul. In the invisible dimension where your true work is always happening, those seasons are among the most productive, most transformative, most necessary phases of your entire journey. Because during the silence, your soul is not idle. It is weaving. It is restructuring the very architecture of your energy field. It is releasing the imprints of connections that drained you and rebuilding the chambers of your heart according to a blueprint far more precise, far more elevated, far more aligned with your actual destiny than anything your conscious preferences could design on their own. Think of it this way. A caterpillar inside a cocoon does not appear to be doing anything. From the outside, there is only stillness, only waiting, only the appearance of nothing happening. But inside that stillness, one of the most radical transformations in all of nature is underway. Every structure of the caterpillar's former self is being dissolved and rebuilt into something that bears almost no resemblance to what it was before. The silence is not emptiness. The silence is metamorphosis. This is what is happening within you during the long seasons when your soul refuses to open. You are not stagnating. You are not being punished. You are not being withheld from love as some kind of cosmic cruelty. You are being transformed at a level too deep and too precise for your conscious mind to supervise. And the transformation requires stillness the way a chrysalis requires enclosure. Not forever, but for exactly as long as the process needs. And here is what waits on the other side of that stillness. Not just any connection, not just relief from the loneliness, not just someone to fill the silence with. What waits is a union that matches the frequency you will have become by the time the cocoon opens. A connection built not on the desperate hunger of incompleteness, but on the genuine recognition of two souls that have each done the work, each carried the silence, each been rebuilt from the inside out. The kind of intimacy that does not just satisfy the body, but ignites the entire being, that does not just touch the surface, but reaches all the way down to the part of you that has been waiting to be truly seen, since long before you had words for what you were looking for. That is what the abstinence is guarding. That is what the silence is protecting. Not nothing, everything. So if you are in one of these seasons right now, if you are sitting inside a stillness you did not choose and cannot seem to escape, I want you to hear this with every part of yourself that is capable of receiving it. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not being left out of something that was meant for you. You are inside the cocoon, and the fact that you cannot see what is being built does not mean nothing is being built. It means the construction is happening at a level too sacred, too precise, too fundamentally important to rush. Trust the silence. Not because it is comfortable. It is not. Not because it is easy. It never is. But because it is yours. Because it is purposeful. Because it is the universe honoring the depth of what you carry by refusing to let it be wasted on anything less than what it was designed for. Your soul is not withholding love from you. Your soul is withholding you from anything that is not love. And that chosen one is the greatest act of devotion any force in this universe could offer you. Hold on to that. Especially on the nights when the silence feels like it will swallow you whole. Because on the other side of this stillness, something is waiting that will make every moment of the waiting feel not just worthwhile, but inevitable. It could not have happened any other way. The silence was not an obstacle to your love story. but the very foundation upon which it was always going to be built. And now, having understood the mystery of the sealed gate, it is time to turn towards something that operates in the exact opposite direction. Because while abstinence seals the chosen one off from false unions, there is another pattern that pulls with equal force in the opposite direction, a magnetic, almost irresistible attraction that draws the chosen one again and again toward a very specific kind of person, not the whole, not the thriving, not the already healed, but the broken, the wounded, the ones drowning quietly in pain they cannot name. Have you ever noticed a pattern in the people you fall for? Look closely, because if you are a chosen one, what you will find is not coincidence. It is a signature, and it reads the same way almost every time. Broken, wounded, carrying a pain so heavy it bends the air around them. You walk into a room, and without trying, your attention finds the one who is suffering. Not the loudest one, not the most confident one, the one whose smile does not quite reach their eyes. You feel them before you see them, and something inside you, ancient and automatic and completely beyond your control, moves toward them like water finding its natural course. This is not weakness. The world has called it a savior complex, a trauma bond waiting to happen. And while there is truth woven into some of those observations, they do not tell the whole story. Because you carry within you what ancient traditions would call light codes, currents of healing energy that flow through your presence naturally, without effort. Broken souls feel this the moment they enter your orbit. They turn toward you instinctively, the way a plant turns toward sunlight. And being needed that deeply feels, in the beginning, like the most profound connection you have ever known. But here is where the beauty begins to unravel. There is a critical difference between being a healing presence in someone's life and becoming a source they drain without ever replenishing. Broken souls, not out of malice, but simply out of the nature of their woundedness, will take everything you offer and reach for more, because the emptiness they carry cannot be filled from the outside. It can only be filled from within themselves. And until they discover that truth, they will keep reaching toward you, and you, with your enormous heart, will keep pouring. Until one day you reach down into yourself to give again and find that something essential is simply no longer there. This is the cycle that traps chosen ones in relationship after relationship with the same dynamic wearing different faces. The partners change, the names change, but the architecture remains identical. You give, they receive. You sacrifice pieces of your own wholeness, believing that this time the love will finally flow both ways. And when it ends, you are left not just heartbroken, but spiritually depleted, hollowed out in a way that feels structural, as though your inner world was quietly dismantled while you were busy holding someone else together. Here is the hardest truth of this pattern. The reason you are drawn to broken souls is not only your capacity to heal, it is also your own unhealed places. Because somewhere within you, there is a wound that recognizes itself in their woundedness. And in the unconscious logic of the unhealed heart, you believe that if you can fix them, you will have proven something. Not to them, to yourself. But you cannot heal your own wound through someone else's redemption. Every time you have tried, you ended up more depleted, not less wounded. The healing you search for in those relationships was never located in them. It was always located in you. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you learn the difference between being a lighthouse and being a lifeboat. A lighthouse stands firm, shines its light, and guides ships to shore without drowning itself in the attempt. You were built to be a lighthouse, chosen one, not a lifeboat. When you finally internalize that distinction, the pattern begins to shift. The souls you attract begin to change, because you are no longer broadcasting the frequency of someone who needs to heal others to feel whole. you are broadcasting wholeness itself. And wholeness calls forth a completely different quality of love, not the consuming, one-directional fire that burns bright and leaves ashes, but the steady, mutual recognition of two people who have each done enough inner work to actually see each other, to actually stay. You were not made to be consumed by the broken. You were made to inspire the healing. And there is a world of difference between those two things. For most people, sexuality begins and ends in the body. It is a fleeting rush, a momentary escape, a spark that burns quickly and disappears without leaving anything meaningful behind. But for the chosen one, intimacy was never designed to work that way. For you, desire is not a hunger to be satisfied and forgotten. It is a language, a technology, a force so ancient and so precise that when understood correctly, it does not just connect bodies. It opens dimensions. Long before the modern world reduced sexuality to entertainment, ancient civilizations revered it as sacred architecture. The priestesses of the moon temples, the tantric mystics of the East, the shamans of forgotten tribes, all carried the same hidden knowledge. When two energies merge in conscious, intentional union, something happens that goes far beyond the physical. A current ignites. A veil thins. A channel opens between the human body and the invisible forces that shape reality itself. Heaven and earth meet inside the flesh. And for a moment, the chosen one becomes not just a participant in creation, but an instrument of it. This is why so many chosen ones, even without formal spiritual training, feel a natural and unexplainable urge to ritualize their intimacy. The candles lit before union, the breathing that falls into rhythm without being planned, the colors and symbols that appear behind closed eyes unbidden, the words that rise to the lips that feel less like seduction and more like prayer. These are not random gestures born from romanticism. They are the ancient memory of a soul that remembers what the modern world has forgotten, that sex is not just an act, it is a spell, that every movement in sacred union is geometry. Every breath is a key, every surrender is a doorway. And at the peak of that surrender, something extraordinary becomes available. The moment that the ordinary world calls an ending becomes, for the chosen one, an ignition. The ego dissolves. The boundaries between self and universe blur. And what moves through the body in that instant is not merely pleasure. It is pure creative force radiating outward into realms that no human language has ever adequately described. But this power demands reverence, because opening portals through sexuality without awareness, without preparation, without genuine spiritual grounding, is not liberation. It is exposure. History's greatest mystery schools were not secretive about these practices out of arrogance. They were secretive out of protection, because in the hands of a soul that has not yet confronted its own shadows, sexual energy does not ascend. It entangles. It attracts forces that feed on the unguarded light of the unaware. And what begins as an experience of transcendence can quietly become a source of addiction, confusion, and spiritual chaos that takes years to unravel. That is why the path of the chosen one through sacred sexuality is not about doing more. It is about becoming more. It is about the purification that precedes the ritual, the inner work that makes the body a worthy temple before it is offered as an altar. Because only a soul that has faced its own darkness can safely move through the kind of light these unions generate without being consumed by it. And then, beyond even the ritual, beyond the ceremony and the conscious invocation, lies the final and most extraordinary transformation available to the chosen one. The moment when sexuality transcends the body entirely, when desire itself undergoes a kind of transfiguration so complete that it becomes unrecognizable as what it once was. Not because the fire goes out, but because it finally finds its true direction. This is the stage that the greatest mystics pointed toward but rarely explained in plain language. The transfiguration of desire into divine purpose. The moment when the chosen one stops asking, "Who will satisfy me?" and begins asking, "What will I create with this fire?" When every pulse of passion becomes fuel, not for momentary pleasure, but for art, for healing, for vision, for the awakening of others. When the same force that once drove the search for union in another body becomes the engine of a mission that outlives the flesh entirely. At this stage, the body itself becomes an altar, not a cold, repressive altar built on denial and shame, but a living, breathing, luminous altar, where desire is not silenced, but elevated, where the fire is not extinguished, but redirected, lifted like incense toward something larger than personal satisfaction, transformed into creation, into purpose, into the specific, irreplaceable contribution that only this soul, in this body, in this lifetime, was designed to make. And perhaps you have already tasted fragments of this without having a name for it. The moments when passion overflowed, not into another person, but into something you created. Words that poured from somewhere deeper than your conscious mind. Art that seemed to move through your hands, rather, than from them. Visions that carried you so far beyond yourself that when you returned, you were not quite the same person who had left. These are not accidents. They are not flukes. They are previews, glimpses of what becomes permanently available when the chosen one fully aligns their sexual energy with their spiritual purpose. Because what you once believed was chaos in you, what you once feared was addiction or dysfunction or some fundamental brokenness in the way you were built for desire, was never any of those things. It was compressed power waiting for the right container. It was a river that had not yet found its proper channel. It was fire that had not yet been given something worthy to build rather than simply to burn. The chosen one does not escape sexuality. The chosen one redeems it, transfigures it, and in doing so, reveals the truth that most of the world will spend an entire lifetime never comprehending. That desire, in its purest and most elevated form, is not a distraction from divine purpose. It is the very fuel through which divine purpose is fulfilled. That pleasure, raised to its highest frequency, becomes prayer. That sexuality, understood in its deepest dimension, becomes the force through which the chosen one finally, fully, irreversibly steps into the reason they came here in the first place. This is your fire, chosen one. It was never meant to consume you. It was always meant to crown you. We have traveled far together. And now, standing at the end of this journey, I want you to do something before we close. I want you to look back at everything we have uncovered and truly let it land, not as interesting information, not as spiritual entertainment, but as a mirror held up to your own life, your own patterns, your own most private and unspoken experiences. The encounters in the dark that felt too real to be dreams. The seasons of silence when your soul simply refused to open no matter how loudly everything else in you was screaming. The endless pull toward broken people who took your light and left you emptier than they found you. The instinct to treat intimacy as something sacred, something ceremonial, something that deserved more reverence than the world ever taught you to give it. And finally, that deepest stirring, the one that lives beneath all the others. The sense that the fire inside you was never meant only for another body, that it was always reaching toward something larger, something that outlasts pleasure and transcends desire entirely. None of it was random. None of it was punishment. None of it was the universe making your life unnecessarily complicated out of indifference or cruelty. Every single experience, including the painful ones, including the ones you are still ashamed of, including the ones you have never spoken aloud to another living soul, was part of a precise and purposeful initiation. One that was designed not to break you, but to build you into exactly the kind of being capable of carrying what you were sent here to carry. Because that is the truth at the center of everything we have explored today. Your sexuality was never ordinary, because you were never ordinary. You were not designed for shallow connections or disposable pleasures, or the kind of love that asks nothing of either person and leaves both of them fundamentally unchanged. You were designed for depth, for meaning, for the kind of union that does not just satisfy the body, but awakens the soul. And because you were designed for something that rare, the path to it had to be equally uncommon, equally demanding, equally unlike anything the ordinary map of human experience could have prepared you for. The strange encounters with invisible presences were not madness. They were initiations into the reality that your energy extends far beyond your physical form, and that learning to navigate the unseen is part of your calling. The long seasons of abstinence were not punishment or deprivation. They were the cocoon, the sacred enclosure inside which your soul was rebuilding itself according to a blueprint too precise and too important to rush. The magnetic pull toward wounded souls was not weakness or poor judgment. It was the beginning of a lesson you needed to learn about the difference between healing others and healing yourself, between being a lighthouse and being a lifeboat. The impulse to ritualize intimacy was not strangeness or excess. It was ancient memory. Your soul recognizing a truth that civilization forgot and quietly trying to practice it anyway. And the transfiguration of desire into purpose was not the death of your passion. It was its resurrection into the highest form it was always capable of taking. All of it was the map. The entire journey, with all its confusion and fire and silence and longing, was drawing you toward this moment, toward this clarity, toward the understanding that what you carried as shame was always sacred. What you experienced as curse was always calling. What felt like the most isolating thing about you was always the very thing that made you irreplaceable. So from this moment forward, I want you to make a choice, not a dramatic one, not a performative one, a quiet, internal, unshakable one. The choice to stop apologizing for the depth of what you carry, to stop shrinking your fire to make others comfortable, to stop measuring your experience against the ordinary and finding yourself lacking when the truth is that you were simply never built for ordinary in the first place. Every desire that rises within you from this day forward is not confusion. It is compass. Every season of silence is not emptiness. It is preparation. Every attraction that pulls you toward pain is not chaos. It is an invitation to look inward and heal the place within yourself that is still calling out to be seen. Every ritual instinct is not strangeness. It is remembrance. And every pulse of creative fire that moves through your body is not just longing. It is your purpose, speaking in the only language powerful enough to reach you at your core. You were not sent here to have a normal relationship with desire. You were sent here to demonstrate what desire becomes when it is finally understood, when it is finally honored, when it is finally directed towards something worthy of the extraordinary soul it flows through. So walk forward now, with that knowledge fully alive inside you. Not with arrogance, not with the exhausting performance of someone who has figured everything out, but with the quiet, grounded, unshakable confidence of someone who has finally stopped fighting what they are and started becoming it fully. Your sexuality is not your downfall. It never was. It is your crown. It is not your shame. It is your key. It is not your burden. It is your bridge between who you have been and who you were always meant to become, between the life you have been living and the one that has been waiting for you to be ready to receive it. And if these words have moved something in you today, if something shifted while you were here, if you recognized yourself in any part of what we explored together, then declare it. Write 99 in the comments below, not as a ritual for its own sake, but as a declaration to yourself, a marker in time that says, I was here. I heard this. And I am choosing, from this moment forward, to carry my fire differently. The old cycle ends here. The new one begins now. And if you have not yet subscribed, do it now. Because this is only the beginning of what we are uncovering together. Every revelation ahead goes deeper, reaches further, and speaks more directly to the part of you that has always known there was more to your story than the world ever gave you credit for. Chosen one, the secret is no longer hidden. It never needed to be found out there. It was always living inside you, waiting for you to be brave enough to look directly at it without flinching. Now you have. And nothing will ever be quite the same again.